Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Let me turn down my headset volume a little bit so I don't blow my own ears out. This is going to be a talking head video. I don't have any reference stories. I don't have any reference videos, but I want to talk about this because there's an important lesson to be learned when you don't control your emotions and you kind of lash out. And if you guys aren't familiar, apparently when Steven Crowder, conservative comedian and political host or talk show host, decided to leave Blaze and become a free agent, as it were, he reached out to Daily Wire and decided to see if he could maybe come on board and work with them. And Daily Wire gave him a contract that he found was unsuitable. And according to both members or everyone involved, they were friends for almost a decade. And Steven Crowder didn't feel that the contract was very good, and he felt that he would be punished for being removed off of social media, which we know is left-leaning, and he'd be punished for that. And so he called Daily Wire kind of working in bed with big tech, meaning that if Steven Crowder for some reason got kicked off YouTube or Rumble or Twitter or Facebook or whatever at the whims of the left, he would be penalized. And that means that, you know, he felt that Daily Wire was living by the social media rules to keep him, you know, kind of squared away and being out there. And that if he didn't play by those rules, he'd be punished. But as we all know, they could have done a cancellation campaign against him or something like that and taken out a good portion of his money, which I agree with. And in Daily Wire's case, they're saying, hey, you know what? We're offering $50 million for 4 years of work, but we need you on social media. And we're not even saying you have to be monetized. It's just you can't be banned off of social media because you're going to be reading our advertiser links, and that's how we make the money to pay you. So both groups have kind of a good case to stand on. And you can say, hey, the Daily Wire didn't offer enough. You can say, Steven Crowder can do better on his own. Like, all those things are reasonable. But the whole point that I want to talk about tonight is the lesson that can be learned from controlling your emotions. Because this is going to damage somebody, maybe both of them. It certainly has ruined their friendship if they had one. And now they're all out in a media war. And you've got probably the two biggest conservative voices, or, you know, Daily Wire being multiple conservative voices, but two of the largest conservative content creators going at each other's throats. And all this does is hurt them. That's all it does, is it hurts themselves. You know, you've got authoritarian government being pushed. You've got censorship of the First and Second Amendments. You've got the FBI going to Davos and talking about, you know, how they're going to censor social media. You've got the Democrats in power, which is, you know, the kind of a good talking point for, you know, conservative Republicans to be speaking about all the issues there. You've got record high inflation. You've got a debt crisis. We've got a million things to be talking about. And now these two are going at each other's throats, and it's damaging their brand. It all kind of started, I think, and this is where I'm going to call them both out. It kind of started, if Steven Crowder, went for a contract and he found that it was insulting, which he did, and he felt that Daily Wire should not be penalizing him for being removed off social media, which again is kind of left control. Crowder's whole point is, look, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that there are smaller content creators that shouldn't be beholden to these kind of contract rules. So he kind of felt like he's protecting the smaller creator. And while I agree with him with that, number one, it's really, he's a big name. And for somebody that comes from nothing, from somebody that's maybe a nobody, seeing the contract that Daily Wire put out, if they said to me, hey, man, we'll pay you, I don't know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, but you need to abide by these rules, but we'll put your name on the Daily Wire brand and you'll be seen by a lot more people. And when your contract's done, you can go do your own thing. I would accept that contract. I don't think it's up to Steven Crowder to kind of tell Daily Wire what they need to be doing with their contracts, because the contract that maybe Steven Crowder thinks is unfair, a smaller creator might jump through hoops for just for the opportunity. And by him going live, kind of calling them out on that, that was the first mistake. I can see why he did it. Again, he felt like he needed to protect smaller content creators, but he could have done it in a much more mature way, I think. Rather than calling out that contract specifically, because he didn't call Daily Wire out specifically, he just called out the contract, and he had blacked out a lot of the information, which was the right thing to do. But I think he could have done it better. And what he could have said is just in one of his videos, hey, content creators out there, we've been looking for signing on to a new brand. Here's some of the things that were in contracts that we've come across, and here's something that you should be aware of. And don't give away too much, value yourselves. He could have done that without ever talking about the contract, about showing contract, about going so critical. He kind of lost his emotional control. And I think and I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying anybody's wrong in this. I'm just saying that what happened is emotions took over logic and it got away from him. But he didn't call anybody out specifically. And Daily Wire took this as, hey, there's a lot of people that are thinking it might be us. If they had kept their mouths shut, they put in TDW, which is the Daily Wire. A lot of people were saying, hey, you know what? 3 letters. This could be Fox. It could be OAN. This could be a lot, TLC. I mean, it could be a lot of other content creators. Had Daily Wire held their tongues and just said, you know what, we're gonna let this go. Like, obviously Steven's upset. Let's just move along. But instead, they felt like they needed to argue their contract. And when they did so, I think they made themselves look not very good, because a lot of the things that they were pointing out, it started causing people to make arguments like, hey, but I don't think this is fair. And all of a sudden you've got, 10 million or 20 million people that are all of a sudden contract negotiation specialists that think that they understand the Daily Wire's and Steven Crowder's position on this, where you don't know Daily Wire's financials. You don't know Steven Crowder's, actual income, because a lot of his Mug Club stuff was reported to The Blaze, but not him. So he may not know it firsthand. And so Daily Wire got upset about this and decided to respond. And then Ben Shapiro decided to respond. And then Candace Owens decided to go off the rails and start calling him names. And she goes, and so who wins? Nobody. At best, somebody might be like myself, which is, hey, you know what? I agree with both of them. I still like both content creators. I financially support both content creators. It doesn't change my mind about anybody, but it does sadden me to see people going at each other's throats like this. And I don't agree with a lot of things that, some of these guys' views have, but I also agree with a lot of them. But in this case, the emotional response made everybody lose. And so I guess what I'm saying is that if Steven hadn't decided to feel like they needed to call this out and bring it public, no issue. If Daily Wire had kind of just said, hey, you know what, let's let this float over. They may think it was us. Let's just breeze past this and move on. Yeah, they might have lost a couple of subs if people really felt like, oh, it's definitely them. I'm going to unsubscribe. Okay, well, that maybe this is a little bit of punishment for not offering Steven a little bit better contract. I mean, he's literally probably the most viewed content creator on the conservative side by far. He probably gets more views. I know when he does live streams of political events, he gets 500,000 people watching him. That's more than the Daily Wire does. So it's almost like two equals coming to confront each other, and Daily Wire didn't treat him very well. I'm saying that's the perception. But the lesson to be kind of taken away from all of this is that once you get emotions involved on either side, you're going to lose. Because you look weak, you look childish, you look upset, you act like you are defending yourself. In the case of Candace Owens, she acts like she's throwing a tantrum. And everybody loses out of this. But had either party decided to take the higher road and just say, you know what, I'm going to keep the emotions out of this. Let's just let it slide. We'll move along. They probably would have remained friends. There wouldn't be any big debate over this stuff, and none of this would be happening. And again, it's not to say that either one doesn't have their correct or right view of the situation. This is what happens when two people come to the table and they don't meet an agreement. But when you make it personal and you start attacking and you start complaining and you start dragging things out in public, this is what's going to happen. And I think this relates to you guys out there. You know, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're negotiating at work, whether you're trying to deal with a family member, he who cares the least wins. I've said this multiple times. And all that means is that if you take things from a logical standpoint, from a place of strength, from a place of reason, from a place of stoicism, now, granted, that doesn't necessarily get you anywhere in the courts or things like that. But I mean, as far as public opinion, usually you'll win. And sometimes that means not answering, not talking, not expressing an opinion, just quietly sitting there silent. I think if you do that in life, you're going to find yourself getting ahead a little bit more. You know, when I've been in negotiations for a salary and they tell me how much I'm getting paid, sometimes just sitting there quietly, making them sweat a little bit, making them think or wonder what you're thinking. Again, same thing in salary negotiations. Whoever talks next loses. So then usually, if you sit there for long enough, contemplating, and now good managers, you know, good negotiators, they'll also sit there quietly. And so one of you has to break the silence before a while. And usually that will be me, and I'll ask other questions. But if they think that maybe they're coming from a position of weakness, many times they'll open their mouth and say, now, do remember this comes with this, and we also offer, they'll start selling themselves to you a little bit more. Take this as a good lesson. I think this is a good lesson for everybody. Come from a place of strength. Use your stoicism. Use your logic. Don't come out arguing or fighting or being emotional and I'm not taking a side. I'm not saying that Stephen's wrong. I'm not saying Daily Wire's wrong, because I know some of you are fans of one and not fans of the other, or maybe you're fans of both or whatever. That's not where we're at. This is not a competition between both groups of people. I like both groups of people, and I hope they can put this aside and mend their fences and move along. But just remember, once you start getting emotional, once you start putting feelings into this, you're going to many people look like a loser, or you're going to at least force them to choose sides. And once you've done that, one of you has hurt yourselves. And I think this didn't have to happen. And it's a shame that it did, because I like both groups. But there's a little takeaway for today, guys. Control your emotions. Think logically. When the STFH, when the SHTF, I don't say that one very well. When the crap hits the fan, right? When it hits the fan, control yourself. Sometimes let it go, move forward. And I think in all cases, you'll definitely come ahead better than Steven Crowder or Daily Wire did in that case.